Sarah describes when she walks into a Frank Lloyd Wright home, she gets this feeling of being hugged. And so their heart is in it, and they really wanted to build this home and do it right.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
Don't stop. Don't stop.
Every home has a heartbeat, a history, and a story to tell. Some homes are born from imagination, others are built on legacy, and sometimes a home is both. Welcome to Every Home Has a Story, a podcast from Homes.com. Today's episode takes us to Ohio, where a mother and daughter brought legendary architect Frank Lloyd Wright's final residential design to life. I'm Parker Leipzig with the Homes.com news team and one of your guides on this house tour.
And I'm your host, Valerie Kellogg, an editor at Homes.com. Today we welcome Homes.com staff writer Caroline Broderick. Caroline covers her native Chicago and Midwest and brings prior experience as an editor for the residential construction audience, producing content on everything from design and market trends to business and even mental health in the industry. Welcome, Caroline.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So Frank Lloyd Wright may be gone, but apparently his blueprints are still making house calls. Why are we still talking about Wright after all these years? Why do his designs endure?
Well, it's really interesting because, people love mid-century, right? And I think a lot of people associate Frank Lloyd Wright with mid-century, though his career spanned 70 years. But he died in 1959. And so we see mid-century, 70s, 60s. But what he did was really pioneered kind of what would allow mid-century to come, right? And that's what he did with his prairie style and his connection to nature. And so that was something that was a little bit more radical when it came to architecture that people really connected to, and they still do today. And so what that looks like is we see, low profiles, low hipped roofs, an abundance of windows, stone, brick, wood, all these connections to nature. That was a really big thing for him. He wanted nature and the built environment to live in harmony, and it was good for its inhabitants. So that was kind of his ethos that he really pushed forward, and people still connect to that today.
I would say so. Are there any period Wright homes on the market right now?
Yeah, there are about 5 right now, including the late director David Lynch's compound that includes one of Frank Lloyd Wright's homes. And you can read all about that on Homes.com. A reporter, Moira Ritter, covered that one recently.
Now, is it true with the Wright homes that are on the market right now that they're in kind of unusual locations?
Yeah, so Frank Lloyd Wright lived in Wisconsin. Most of his homes are found in the Midwest, but some of these homes are in Mississippi, they're in Kentucky, Arizona, and the one that we just talked about, David Lynch's, is in California.
Yeah, so that's unusual. Let's get back to what HBO is calling the Last Wright house. Can you tell us about what the show is about?
Yeah, so you said it's the Last Wright. So allegedly this is Frank Lloyd Wright's last residential design ever. So he died in 1959, and this was apparently on his drawing board when he died.
Oh, wow.
So that's why they call it The Last Wright. And it's produced by the Magnolia Network, comes on HBO the next day. 4-part docuseries following a mother and daughter that built this home. But I'll tell you a little bit about maybe how the home kind of came to be. So it's in suburban Cleveland, Ohio. It was designed for a man named Louis Penfield. Now, he was an art teacher, and he already had a Frank Lloyd Wright home. It's the Louis Penfield house. Most of them, they go by the name of the original owner. So the Louis Penfield house, it's sitting on 30 acres, and it's being threatened by an interstate that's going to come through. They want to take it over eminent domain and demolish the home. So Louis Penfield, who was super proud about having a Frank Lloyd Wright house, wrote to him, talked to him, said, design me another one. Oh. And this is apparently what the owners told me, what they heard from his son. But Frank Lloyd Wright said, just rebuild the same house that I designed for you already. And he said, no, design me another one. So he did. They didn't hear about it until Frank Lloyd Wright died. And it was about maybe a week after his funeral or so, maybe the week of his funeral, they received those plans in the mail. Now, that was 1959. The home finally got built in January.
That's an incredible story. So the original plans were discovered because they were mailed to the family. And what's the story behind the final design?
Yeah, so that's like one part of the story. decades ago, right?
Right.
It comes to be and nothing happens. So Paul Penfield is Lewis Penfield's son. He grew up in this Frank Lloyd Wright home, always knew about RiverRock. It was kind of known that there were these unbuilt plans. Paul had really wanted to build this, but it never happened. Financials came in the way. Come 2018, there's a mother and daughter who are living in Florida, but they're from Willoughby Hills, Ohio, outside of Cleveland. And they're looking for a plot of land where they can live together and live with their family. They see 30 acres, 2 residential structures, the Lewis Penfield house, and then these unbuilt plans. Really piqued their interest, and they wrote a letter to Paul and said, this is what we would do. We would rehab these homes, live in them. We would steward Lewis Penfield house, and we will build RiverRock. I mean, that really was what Paul wanted for a buyer, and he sold it to them.
Sort of like a love letter.
Yeah, and I think it really connected with Paul. That was his family home, and he actually still lives nearby, and he's featured in their docuseries if you check it out, and they talk to him a lot. So.
I couldn't resist. I had to check it out because
Of
I knew we were
course.
going to. First of all, I read your story, which was so interesting. The house is fascinating, but the women are fascinating. The mother
Yes.
and the daughter. The mother came from a family of
Mm-hmm.
builders, right? And she was kind of discouraged from going into the family business. But at the end of the day, she and her daughter, who, obviously is also part of this family, end up building this house as sort of the general contractors, right?
Yeah, I love, so Debbie is the mother and Sarah is the daughter. And I love how Sarah describes them in the show. She said one retired lady and one never built a house lady.
Right.
And that's very much them. Debbie had some experience like decades ago, she said, and she was still nervous.
Oh,
like,
that's right, because you interviewed them, right?
I did.
You went to Willoughby Hills.
I went and I saw the home and I chatted with Sarah in person, but I interviewed both of them via Zoom before the show came out. Sarah describes when she walks into a Frank Lloyd Wright home, she gets this feeling of being hugged. And so their heart is in it and they really wanted to build this home and do it right.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Okay. All right. So obviously there are going to be challenges in bringing this all to life. I mean, can you sort of tell us that backstory?
Yeah. So Frank Lloyd Wright designed homes for the land they were going to be on, right? We talk about that connection to nature. We see falling water, and of course it's built and designed for that where it is, right? RiverRock, which is the name of this home, was the same. So Wright designed everything based on the land. There is a tree that he has in the plans that the home is essentially based off of, with its angle, with everything.
It's a tulip tree, right?
It's the tulip tree.
Okay.
And that was decades ago. The tree is huge now compared to what it was. So if you watch the show, you'll see that that was a big thing. So that's a challenge. The natural environment in which they had the plans for was not necessarily the same, though a lot of it was. And the home is called RiverRock because it was supposed to be designed and built with the rocks pulled from the nearby river. Now, Lewis Penfield had these plans. He knew RiverRock and he knew about these stones that were specified and they wanted this. So decades ago, he pulled all these rocks out of the river to be used in constructing this home. Unfortunately, they didn't have enough. There were a few different things that were, they really had to get over those challenges. And again, they had the heart and they really led with wanting to stay true to those designs. So they worked with it. But you also have to think about building codes today and how different they were. And, Sarah joked that they have comments that this is the best quality Wright home because it's built in 2025 and not 1959. So they were able to do some things under the skin. For building codes, make sure the roof doesn't leak, which is a common challenge with Wright designs, Wright homes.
Right.
Insulate it better, all those kinds of things.
And also asbestos, right?
Oh, yeah. So they had all these wonderful plans. Frank Lloyd Wright was so detailed that they had these hundreds of pages of specified products and designs, everything down to the little hardware pulls on the cabinets.
Okay.
And one of the things in there were an asbestos ceiling. So unfortunately,
not
they couldn't do that.
It's not happening.
Yeah.
Definitely not happening. All right. Well, we're going to take a little break. And when we come back, we'll talk more about this great house.
Expert voices, local impact. Our journalists bring you sharp analysis and compelling stories from every corner of the U.S. housing market. See what our newsroom is uncovering at Homes.com/news.
So I drove to go see this home a couple weeks ago in person. Photos cannot do it justice. Let me just start there. But what happens is when you're going up to the home, it's on this beautiful land with all of these mature trees, this open green field. You see these houses, you see stacks of stone that Lewis Penfield pulled. And as you go down this like rocky path, you see this turquoise roof in the distance. And obviously it grows as you get near, and the home just essentially grows in front of you. And it's really interesting. It has this striking roof with these lines and this cantilevered kind of corner it like looks sharp, but it looks very modest from the outside. It's still very kind of low to the ground. It's very much almost looks connected to the earth, right? Mm-hmm. It has all the rock on the exterior. And so you walk into the home, and Frank Lloyd Wright does this thing with compression and expansion, and it forces movement. So what that looks like is hallways or transition areas, lower ceilings. You walk into a room, higher ceiling, a lot more airy, more spacious. And that's to get people into certain areas, right? Get them moving throughout the home. And so walking into RiverRock, it's almost like a fork in the road. You look one way and it's this hallway clad in mahogany built-ins, but it's a skinny hallway and these series of doors. And then you look to the left and you see a stone wall and a bit of light coming through down at 2 steps, but you don't know what's around the corner. So it's like very enticing. You go down that skinny hallway and all those doors is there's a bathroom and there are 3 bedrooms. You open a door and there are these windows and you're just looking out into the beautiful nature. And you can really understand that kind of forced movement when you're going through there. But one thing they had to work with was in one of the bathrooms. In the plans, it kind of was designed to be a Jack and Jill bathroom, though there was a tub. It was like this corner tub that was specified that simply just couldn't fit.
So Frank Lloyd Wright wanted a corner tub in the house?
Yeah.
Now, is that because the house, because this house is not a big house.
It is not large at all.
Okay.
But there are 3 bedrooms. And so
yeah,
imagine a family
so
living
he's
in there.
maximizing the bathroom, the space in the bathroom, in other words.
Yeah,
right.
I'm sure that was what he was going for. And then it was a Jack and Jill. The bathroom in reality would have been in the hallway. The door would have never worked. So that was an adjustment they also had to make.
So what did they end up doing?
So they did use a tub like that in the primary bathroom, but they had to do a traditional bathroom for the second one. So no Jack and Jill, changed it around a bit.
Okay.
You couldn't tell if you were in there.
Okay.
So you walk through, and on one wing, there are all these bedrooms, all this dark mahogany, and then you go toward the enticing way down the kind of half-floor steps there, and it just opens up. I mentioned that turquoise cantilevered roof, and that is a just wall of windows. It feels like it's 2 stories, and all you want to do is stand there and look out at nature. But there's also built-ins across the wall, a little kitchen nook, and a lot of stone throughout, a stone fireplace. And as I mentioned, I'd kind of detail how they highlighted Lewis Penfield and the rocks he took by hand out of the river. So in the plans, Wright specified to pull out a piece of stone every so often. So every stone that's pulled out a bit is one that Lewis Penfield took from the river, which is a really cool kind of shout out. Yeah, so the home has almost these 2-story of windows. It's extremely bright in there. And what's really cool is there is handmade custom furniture that they made that were in the plans.
Wow. Okay.
So Wright designed the furniture for the house as well?
Exactly. So he did that often, they said. He designed furnitures, he designed lamps, all these kinds of little things for his homes. You would never see this dining set anywhere. It had these unique angles and these cutouts. But they had a family friend actually make them. And then there was a seating arrangement as well. But they were like, everything in this home is what he specified. If he wanted something built, we built it.
So then what did they do for, the other types of items in the home to try and keep it as authentic as they wanted to be without, just the furniture that he specified?
Exactly, right, because it would just be empty at that point. So what they told me is they took a cross-country road trip, empty van. By the time they got back, it was so full. But they did a bunch of research, went through the spec book, and tried to find the actual products that were in there. They found in the box some towel rods that were actually in what Wright specified. Some other things they just had to find for the time, right? So they found this oven, this old vintage oven that was never used by this woman because it was a grandmother or something. She didn't want gas in her home. She used it for storage. So they got this like perfect quality oven. I know, right? And they have this amazing fridge that has Lazy Susan like turntable in there. Like, why did we stop making fridges like that? I would never forget anything in the back if we had it.
Yeah.
They chose everything, period, as much as they could, and they did a great job. You're like transported when you're in there.
So how did the Magnolia Network HBO series come about?
So the mom, Debbie, actually knew like a talent scout or someone working out in Hollywood, and he heard their story and was immediately like, this needs to be told. Like people need to know the story of you two building this. And they did not expect to be in the series at all. That was not an expectation. They like did not want that. But what producers told them were like, people want to see real people, and you are real people. And so they became essentially the stars of this and sharing their journey.
So Caroline, the mother and daughter are getting a lot of publicity for this house, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think they'll ever sell it?
No, I really don't. They actually rent it for short-term stays. So the Lewis Penfield house, the first house there, Paul Penfield had been renting that out. So when they purchased it, they continued that. Now, it's not on Airbnb or anything. They do their own. You can stay in the RiverRock house. And so I think that's going to continue. They told me they find great joy out of having the feedback and having people experience the home.
If Frank Lloyd Wright could walk through the finished home today, what would he say?
People regard Frank Lloyd Wright. He was a genius, right? Architecture, but he had an incredible ego. So what I would think is either he would absolutely love it or he would have something to say, just to have something to say.
The Wright Foundation also has something to say.
That's true.
There's a bit of a kerfuffle over this house. The foundation doesn't want to recognize it as a Wright house, right?
So in 2019, there was an unbuilt policy published by the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation that essentially said any project that Wright designed while he was alive that is built after he's dead will not be recognized as a legitimate Frank Lloyd Wright design. Instead, it's derived from the plans or based off of the plans. Now, that's because their kind of explanation of this is that when Frank Lloyd Wright had a home or a commercial structure built, there was somebody on site to oversee that, someone that worked with him, and they're unsure that if it would really be exactly how he would have had it built, given he wasn't there.
Are there any benefits to a home being an authentic Wright home?
Well, you do get the little red square.
Oh, okay.
That
So
little ceramic tile that denotes
so that
it.
where does you see the red tile in the series? Where does that go?
That's on the Lewis Penfield house.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So they have it right outside the front door of the Lewis Penfield house.
It's just a tile, and is that his signature that's on it?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So how do they make the tile with the signature?
That's a great question.
How could you not know that? No, I'm kidding. Well, yeah, who knows, right? So just quickly, what did you think of the HBO series?
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
I thought, it's really, they were sharing with me what a great experience it was for them and how they really loved the crew that they worked with. And the approach was that, people know Frank Lloyd Wright, but not everybody really knows, his ethos, how he designed homes. So when you watch it, it's kind of like a little education as well. And it's really interesting because you're marrying, this historic architect with modern day. And so it's kind of a fun lesson. But I also love Sarah and Debbie's kind of like yin and yang. When one of them feels down, the other has positivity. Or when one is really positive, the other one might say something like, they're in over their heads or they're stressed out so I think that's a really fun addition to it.
And what did Sarah and Debbie have to say about, feedback from people who have stayed in there for short-term rentals? What do they think about staying in a Wright house?
Well, actually, when I asked them about like the foundation and like the authenticity, they directly pointed to the feedback they got, and they said, when we read the book of people leaving the guest book, like they're leaving notes about how it was being in the home, and they're only hearing amazing things, and they're like, to us, that tells us everything.
Okay, Caroline, thank you so much for sharing the story with us and for helping us understand how architecture can connect generations.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey through history, imagination, and the power of home. Tune in next time to Every Home Has a Story. And start your search today for more homes for sale at Homes.com. I'm Parker Leipzig with the Homes.com news team. I'll see you next time.